Okay, 7 March 2026. Time on deck is about 16:25. Wanted to share a point with you. I'll share a few points to this video. This video won't be super long today. I want to talk about the close fight issue, Iran. Iran is still in the close fight. Iran's going to be in the close fight for a while. This thing is far from over. There's a lot of propaganda flying around. I don't know if you watch the news or you get into the social media news feeds and you watch Iran as they attempt to try to spin this narrative like they are achieving some kind of tactical or operational success. It's actually really hilarious. They take clips of soldiers marching, actually they were Marines that were marching somewhere. It looked like they were at one of the depots, honestly. And Iran says that, they're tucking tail and getting out of there because Iran has won the war. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. We have maintained absolute air, ground, and sea superiority in that region, and will probably continue to do so for quite some time until the United States is determined when this thing is going to end. But it is up to the Iranian regime whether or not they want to keep fighting or wave the white flag and say, yep, you know what, we're done. We've had enough. 50 years or 47 years is long enough. Near fight issue, the illusion of multiculturalism. That's a near fight issue. Saw a clip the other day, I think it was yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. This guy, I believe it was in New York. They were having some kind of a rally. Some liberal leftist was out there preaching about multiculturalism and that we should let everybody in, and that's what our country is founded on. Yes, we are a melting pot of legal immigrants. My ancestors came here legally. And as he was going off and having this big thing and making this big scene, some presumably Muslim agitator attempted to throw a IED type device, a homemade munition, into this crowd of people and then took off running. It didn't detonate, but it was full of explosives and nuts and bolts and things that would fragment and cause massive injury, if not death. But let's keep pushing that multiculturalism myth, shall we? Man, it was so absurd. You couldn't, the irony was so thick. Okay, that's a near fight issue, in my estimation. And deep fight, the failing communist dominoes. What do I mean by the failing communists? Why are the dominoes starting to fall for the communists? Cuba had some power outages. They have rolling power outages all the time. They're a communist country. They just are, their infrastructure is so antiquated and outdated. It's what the Democrats want here in the United States. They want everything to be solar and wind and ridiculous and failing and non-sustainable. But that's what happens in Cuba. They have these power outages and the people get sick of it. Then the government does barely anything to get things back to some sense of normality. And they're starting to rise up and starting to protest against the Cuban government, against the communist dictatorship of Cuba. And I think our president is taking quite a bit of interest in this. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now if you've been paying attention. It's almost unbelievable, really. Never thought in my lifetime I would see this action against Iran. Past administrations have talked about it. I've spoken on this. They've talked a lot about it. Well, we got to take care of Iran, and they're a real threat to the region, and we got to formulate strategies that contain and they've talked ad nauseum about it. This administration is actually doing something about it. The 1979 Islamic Revolution, women's rights were eroded rather quickly. I saw yet another clip. I can find it for you maybe for a follow-on video. But basically it was this. When the clerics came into power, when they seized power, when they took control of Iran, one of the things that they did pretty early on was curtail women's rights. Women couldn't just dress the way they typically dress in Western culture. Same in Afghanistan. But in doing so, there were counter-protests against this. There were women out protesting in the streets and, yelling and screaming, and this lasted not very long because it became evident pretty early on in that regime that they were willing to use lethal force to try to put down oppression or put down pushback to their regime. Any kind of protest was going to be dealt with harshly, and it has been for the better part of 50 years, right? We've talked about this in some other videos. And if you've paid attention, if you've been alive long enough, you've seen this, you know this, right? So they went from being a westernized culture, a relatively secular westernized culture, to an absolute Islamic caliphate, women dressing in burqas, in hijabs in all black, covering their faces. And that became their norm. They became a shadow of themselves. And they learned over time to accept it. They became their new normal. And they had forgotten what life was like beforehand. But many have not forgotten. Many who are young enough to remember what life was like before the Islamic Revolution in Iran. So it's up to them to determine what kind of governance they want to have in that country when this is all said and done. And it's going to not be without conflict. Because they keep naming successors to the Ayatollah. I mean, it's just one after the other. Once they name him and show his face on the news, he's gone. Or injured. Or just completely taken out of the fight. It's almost hilarious. I mean, you can have an Ayatollah named to one day, and then the next morning, he's gone, and they name another one, and by that afternoon, he's gone. It's going to take a while for them to get the picture, is what I'm kind of driving at. But eventually, in my estimation, Iran will be a free nation in that region once more. I hope so. Yeah, I hope they can get it together and embrace freedom, embrace a democratic type of government that embraces liberty for everyone. If they could model what we have here in the United States, wouldn't that be awesome? But don't hold your breath. Okay. The Cuba Communist Party is failing. I think that's going to be a deep fight issue that's going to probably move up to the near and close fight. Where are we at? March? Probably before the end of summer. We'll see something going on in Cuba. It's going to start getting a little bit hotter down there than it normally already is. And we'll see. We'll see what our country is going to do. We'll see what we have going on behind the scenes pulling those strings. Our country's good at doing stuff like this. You know, this whole business in Iran, this just didn't come out of nowhere. This didn't just become like a thing one day, all of a sudden. This has been a long time in the works, a long time planning. Okay. We'll talk more about that. You know, CIA, shadow operatives within our government and the Israeli government and their Mossad. There's been a lot of involvement that's gotten us to this point to take action in Iran. And maybe we'll see that in Cuba. I don't know. Let's keep an eye on it, and we'll keep talking about it. People are starting to rise up. Dictatorships are falling out of favor. Do you think China's paying attention to this? They probably are. Do you think North Korea's paying attention to this? You know, that fat bastard up in North Korea, do you think he's paying attention? Oh, you bet he's paying attention. We'll talk more. See you guys later.